Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Mind your business. Only on Money FM 89.3.
Welcome to Mind Your Business. I'm Ahmad Akhtar and I'm joined by Ryan Huang. Ryan, when you think of an organization's most valuable asset, what comes to mind?
It has to be data because everything's online these days. And well, in the current digital revolution you're in, you have to take care of the data because data loss can be crippling. And in many cases, may even drag companies into bankruptcy or put them out of business altogether.
Yeah, try and digest these numbers. Data breaches cost companies across the world on average about $5 million last year, according to a study by IBM. Nearly double that amount in the United States. Right?
Ooh, that's quite a pretty penny. So as we continue to navigate and live in a world where data is the new currency, how can companies shield themselves from unauthorized access, misuse, or breaches?
Well, they turn to Cohesity, of course. We're going to be featuring Sanjay Poonen, the CEO of Cohesity, today on Mind Your Business. They've recently become the world's largest data protection software provider after an acquisition of Veritas' enterprise data protection business. So without further ado, Sanjay, good morning.
Ahmad and Ryan, thank you for having me on the show.
Great having you on. So let's lay the context first of where things are when it comes to digital threats these days, because we hear about it every now and then. It makes the headlines. How serious is it? How has it evolved over years?
Yeah, I think the notion of nation-state actors attacking almost every industry, certainly in the United States where we were founded and where I live, this is top of mind to every boardroom. The audit committees often of many boards have got committees that are focused on cybersecurity. And the industries that I think are getting attacked the most are certainly big brands. The big banks usually have good security defenses in, but hospitals are getting attacked, school districts, and there's been many famous names that have been in the United States. And so I think every boardroom right now is taking this very seriously.
What do you put that down to? Is it a lack of education? Is it a lack of stellar infrastructure?
Most often, many of the causes, we look at every cyber attack that often happens in the industry are often because of some naive and stupid mistakes that happen. For example, there's this notion of multi-factor authentication. That means that you want to have a second factor that authenticates that it's you.
Sure.
You get a text message back, or you want to use some
phone call or something,
or a fingerprint, or a retina scan.
Yeah.
And most often people don't put that in their system, so it's easy for a person to come in. That's usually the first. Using passwords that are not changed everyone's, or not strong passwords, having data that's not encrypted, not segmenting your applications. There's a notion of zero trust, which is you trust nobody. As you enter into this building, you've got a physical system.
Yes.
Even entering this door, you don't want anybody coming in. You want to set those things in there for every company, often through an acquisition. In one of the big healthcare organizations in the United States, they acquired a company. The core company's security was pristine. The acquired company had some poor security capabilities, and the entire new company got affected for a bit.
Yeah, so you're pretty much as strong as your weakest link, so to speak.
Well said, Ryan. That's exactly what it is. So you want this notion of zero trust. You want no one allowed to come into Money FM studio, and then you allow selective based on their credentials. So that's the notion of zero trust that's been pervasive now in the security industry, and that's how we've built this data platform to be the first modern data security platform abiding by that zero trust principles.
I'm imagining it's a tougher challenge for smaller businesses because they've got to keep the lights on, they've got to make payroll, they've got so many other things to worry about, and then you've got cybersecurity. Is that where you're seeing a lot of pressure coming through, a lot of concerns, I suppose?
Yeah, we see a lot of small hospitals that don't have the security brands, or the security credentials, the security ITs, the bigger hospitals. And it's kind of wonder why would nation-state actors care about it? But they're just trying to get public news in the newspapers to embarrass, and then collect small amounts of Bitcoin if they could from many places. Some of the bigger profile ones, what ends up happening is companies ask themselves, if I'm down for 6 months, if you look at the hotel chains in Las Vegas that got hit last year, if you're going to be down for several months, I may as well pay the ransom. There's a big controversy as to whether you should pay the ransom. We recommend not doing it. And our pride is the fact that we can guarantee the fastest cyber recovery of your data. But in many cases, organizations all the way up to CEO make the conclusion it's not worth being down for either reputational damage or the business damage. We're going to pay the ransom and let's get back on.
Right.
And in some cases, they have cyber insurance that will take care of it. So this is an interesting topic. School districts, that's really sad. Why would a school district, but they don't have enough cybersecurity defense or IT spend. The LA Unified School District was one of the victims last year. So we pride ourselves in making sure that we can try and do the best we can to keep the world's data safe.
All right, so you now serve over 12,000 customers. You've come a long way since you guys were founded 2013, I believe, so 12 years. You've made some big steps. 85 of the Fortune 100, 70% of the Global 500, big names here. Who are some of the industries that you guys serve?
So financial services, typically the biggest ones. Banks care a lot about their data. They have retention requirements often forever, at least 7 years. That's the biggest industry. Secondly, it's typically public sector, both the military and the civilian departments of almost every government. Third is typical healthcare. We talked a lot about hospitals, but could be everyone from insurance companies to providers, health systems to farmers. And then telcos are the fourth big vertical. And we go into almost every country, and we have some of the biggest logos. But typically, most of them are in these sectors we talked about, these 3 or 4 sectors.
Yeah, I'm just putting my shoes in a business owner facing potentially a nightmare scenario of someone stealing my data, and then I get a ransom demand. And you mentioned, hey, your advice to them is don't pay the ransom. But I'm thinking, hey, I need to keep the business going, otherwise I can't pay my folks in the coming month or so. So I'm under pressure to pay up, get my business going on again, and I'm imagining as well, by that time, it's already too late. I can't do anything. So I just got to move on. So how often do folks pay ransom? And if I'm in that scenario, what should I be doing or planning for recovering? How do I go from that point?
Right. I think you put yourself exactly in the CEO's shoes dilemmas. I mean, that's what in the Las Vegas hotel is one that paid the ransom and one that didn't. And that's the dilemma. Now, what we want to be able to tell a customer is the following. We want you to simulate a ransomware attack before it happens and ask yourself if you got attacked, because we believe that you should prepare for not a matter of if but when. If you get attacked, how long will it take you to recover your application? Let's simulate it. And with our technology, we want to have your core level 0 apps up in an hour, some of the next level apps up in a day, the next apps up in a week, and some up in a month. And if you can have that sort of simulation exercise, where you simulate the attack, you're better prepared when it does happen. Many of these companies have not done that effort. So when it does actually happen, it's going to take them months often to get the data back, and then they have to make the choice you just talked about.
They're pretty much paying the price for not preparing.
Exactly.
Speaking of paying the price, how much do you charge your customers to help them out?
So we price our solution either by user or per terabyte of data that's managed. And it's a very reasonable price that could be, for a small company in the tens of thousands of dollars, for a larger company in the hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million, per year. And it's very economically, sort of set up in a way where we can show them material savings over traditional technologies that don't do it, or the risk that if you happen, you're going to be paying in the tens of millions.
Right. You don't just work in terabytes, you work in exabytes. Ryan, have you heard of exabytes before?
I'm trying to imagine how many zeros that is.
What is an exabyte?
Okay, that's a very good point. So we boast about the fact that we manage hundreds of exabytes of the world's data. Now, an exabyte, let's start with a gigabyte. That's the smallest amount of data that you can probably put on your thumb drive if you had one, or there's going to be a lot of gigabytes on your computer, Ahmad. 1,000 gigabytes, okay, then makes a terabyte.
Okay.
And then 1,000 terabytes make what's called a petabyte.
Okay.
And 1,000 petabytes make an exabyte.
All right.
So it's 1,000 times thousands, so thousands of gigabytes.
I lost you a terabyte.
Exactly. So it's a lot of data. I probably should find some way which I map that to the U.S. Library of Congress and so on and so forth. But a significant part of the world's data. So, for example, some of our banks have hundreds of petabytes of data that they manage over several years. That's a good example of what a large bank may keep over 7 years worth of history. Most of our customers are in the tens of petabytes, but our system has been built to scale for tens and hundreds of petabytes. You add 1,000 petabytes, you get an exabyte.
Yeah, no surprise. Everything's online these days. And talking about what's booming these days is also the utilization of AI, not just for bad actors. I think you're also using AI to try to address some of these data security concerns. How is that playing out in the security front?
Yeah, a lot of AI is used to detect where bad people might be operating the data. Much the same way. There's a lot of parallels in security to healthcare. And the way in which we are looking constantly to understand is there's disease in the data. AI today has been used the same way to kind of help you, detect, ways in which you can better treat disease. And in that same way, a lot of the AI technologies, machine learning technology we use is for security purposes. One of the breakthroughs that we were able to do with NVIDIA, who's now an investor in the company, and Jensen himself was very involved in that decision to invest with us, is the decision to use AI to actually analyze that data. So imagine that you've got the hundreds of this exabytes of data that's safe. If you could apply AI technologies to search and summarize that data. For example, maybe inside that large amount of data are all your vendor contracts with the vendors you've dealt with, 20 million PDFs. What if you could ask a question that said, could you summarize the economic terms I've given all my vendors over the last 10 years? That's an AI. It's called a generative AI. Just like Copilot or a ChatGPT search that you would do, that's something that we could do on the data. We built that technology with NVIDIA. It's very exciting.
Yeah, speaking of NVIDIA, Jensen was also offered you a personal note of congratulations on your Veritas acquisition. And you've known Jensen for quite a while, right? What's he like, and what's the biggest piece of advice he's given you over the years?
He is amazing. I consider him the Steve Jobs of our modern generative AI and our AI era. He's a very humble person. He's been a friend and mentor to me for many, many years. And I approached him when we were, doing this generative AI stuff, and we wanted to build on top of that stack. And he and his team approved an investment in the company. They are on our board of observers. And he gave me some very simple advice when I started the company, because I'd been in a number of big companies. Start with something small and make it big. And that's what we're trying to do at Cohesity. We were about a few $100 million company when I joined, and now we're on the cusp of being a $2 billion company.
Yeah, I like that. Start with something small and make it big. But you have moved from big companies to Cohesity, which is, by comparison, pretty small. How was that transition in terms of, leadership style and what have you?
I think one of the most important thing I have sought to talk about is sort of service or servant leadership, which is if you're at the top of a company, you should think of yourself as inverting that pyramid and really serving your people at the leaf levels of the companies. And that applies whether you're a big company or a small company. When I was at SAP, we had almost 100,000 employees. When I was at VMware, we had 30,000 employees. I was COO there. I was president at SAP. When I joined Cohesity, we had 2,000 employees. We now, with the combination, have 5,500 employees. So whether you're a 20-person firm or a 2,000-person firm or a 20,000 or 200,000, those principles of servant leadership, I think, are what make great leaders special. That's the way in which Nelson Mandela or Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi, you pick any of these people who were long-term, led movements for the world, they were servant leaders.
Yeah, that's a lot of food for thought when it comes to how you can approach leadership. And final thoughts on how they can approach security. What would you like people to take away when they address or face all the challenges with what comes with the data security threats these days?
I think as a list to certainly every consumer, there's some basic rules of cyber hygiene. Just like you brush your teeth, make sure you've got multi-factor authentication set up for all of your personal data, that you've got data that's important to your customers or your life that's encrypted, and then you've set up strong passwords. Now, for organizations, we ensure that in this topic of area, your data needs to be what's called immutable. You can't write over it, and that's one of the technologies we pride ourselves in. And then you set up a whole set of very sophisticated security and AI capabilities to ensure that no one can get to that data, and you can guarantee fast cyber recovery.
All right, Sanjay, quick one. I can't help but notice the lanyard that you're wearing. Are you here for a conference?
Yes, I'm here. We are in a 3-city tour. It started off in Chicago, and then in Berlin, and now in Singapore. I feel like a mini version of the Rolling Stones. And we're getting all of our 1,700 all people in sales and marketing in these 3 different locations, North America first, and then Europe, and now Asia, galvanized about the new mission of the new company. We closed this deal in December. So this is our first opportunity to meet all these people, and it's been extremely exciting. I leave tonight back for San Francisco, and I'm highly energized by this is the second day of our 2-day conference.
Fantastic. Have you had a chance to sample some of our finest chicken rice yet?
It's fantastic. I was out late last night in one of your places that's open till 11:30 tonight. The food here in Singapore is great, but the people are even better.
Great stuff. Looks like you're having a good time in Singapore, and we had a great time having you here in the studio. Sanjay Poonen, CEO of Cohesity. Stay with Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.